In the name of God, in whom we live and move and have our being. Amen. Please be seated. So, today is Easter Sunday. It's also April Fool's Day. So the slightly irreverent reverend in me wants to say, was God just kidding? I mean, was Jesus like, hey guys, guess what? Just kidding. I really wasn't dead. But God wasn't kidding. Jesus really was dead. And Jesus really is alive. No kidding. Death owns a wasted kingdom. So said one of my favorite Christian mystics, the Trappist monk Thomas Merton. Death owns a wasted kingdom. Merton, of course, was referring to the fact that through the suffering and death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, death itself is dead. God's almighty mercy and compassion have triumphed. We are set free and called to live in love with God and with one another forever. Death owns a wasted kingdom. But how do we know that? You know, look around. People still die. Evil and immorality still seem to swirl around us. People are oppressed. Children are killed. God's beautiful creation is still abused. So how do we know? How can we tell that death owns a wasted kingdom? Well, I think we can take a hint from our Easter Gospel reading. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb. Mary Magdalene was a very close friend of Jesus of Nazareth. She followed him as a faithful disciple. Some parts of our Christian tradition call her the apostle to the apostles, using the term generally reserved for Jesus' most intimate inner circle of followers. She was one of only a couple of people who had the audacity and the courage to stay with him, even as he died on the cross. Her love would not allow her to leave him. And so it is now in the story, 3 days after his brutal torture and death. Her love would not allow her to leave him. And so she came. She came to continue to grieve for her dear friend. And some sources say she came to also complete the traditional Jewish burial preparations, which had been so hastily done when his body was removed from the cross hurriedly on the evening before the Feast of Passover began. Very early in the morning, in the dark, alone, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb, because her love would not allow her to leave Jesus. She came looking for him among the dead, in a burial garden, a cemetery, a tomb, looking for him among the dead. But he was not dead. His love would not allow him to leave her either. And so there he was, like some wide open secret, just standing there, as if nothing had happened. It was just too good to be true. And so she was unable to see him. She was unable to find him, even though he was standing right there, like standing in front of her. God's wide open secret. And Mary did not see. She could not see. It was just too good to be true. And then he said her name, Mary. God's wide open secret called her by her name, Mary. And then her eyes were opened. Rabbi. And she saw him. More than that, it sounds like she must have thrown her arms around him because he finally had to tell her to let go. Do not hold on to me, Mary, he said. Don't hold on. I still have to return to God, to my God and to your God. Thomas Merton also wrote and spoke about God's wide open secret, which is everywhere, but often we cannot see, because it's just too good to be true. But God wants us to see God's wide open secret. And so God calls us by name to look, to see, to believe that death owns a wasted kingdom. God is calling you and me and all of us right now, always, every second of every minute of every hour of every day, always and everywhere. God is calling us by name to look, to see, and to believe. So take the time to listen. Take the time to hear God calling your name in the wind and in the waves, in the songs of birds and in the laughter of children, in the sunrise and in the sunset, in the tenderness of a lover and in the faithfulness of a friend, in birth and life, in youth and old age, in health and sickness, in joy and pain, in life and in death. God is calling us by name to look, to see, and to believe in God's wide open secret that death owns a wasted kingdom. So I was thinking this week about examples to share with you. There are too many to list, of course, and they are, for the most part, the usual ones. The untold millions of everyday miracles that we all take for granted and often just fail to notice altogether. The new spring flowers, baby birds being born, the trees bursting into bloom, the miracle of new life. It's everywhere. Every breath, every heartbeat is a gift, calling us by name to look, to see, and to believe. And there are others, so many others, so many people and situations that reveal God's self-giving love and God's compassion in the world today. What about the French police officer who gave his life in exchange for an innocent hostage? What about him? What about the high school students across our country who are marching in the streets to take a stand against violence? What about them? What about the young New York City firefighter who died last week protecting his community? What about him? They are all signs of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, of the inbreaking of God's kingdom. Every time that mercy triumphs over judgment, there is the resurrection. Every time goodness triumphs over evil, there is the resurrection. Every time light triumphs over darkness, there is the resurrection. Every time life triumphs over death, there is the resurrection. Every time beauty and compassion and faithfulness and freedom triumph over ugliness and hate and doubt and fear, there is the resurrection. God's wide open secret is everywhere. It's everywhere. Death owns a wasted kingdom. God is calling each one of us by name. God is calling us to look and to see and to believe in God's wide open secret. Christ is risen, and so are we. Jesus really was dead, and Jesus really is alive. No kidding. Amen.